According to Michael Lewis, 1993, the lexical approach emphasizes the importance of vocabulary in language learning. Lexis, or vocabulary, is considered the foundation of language. Effective communication can occur with a stock of chunks, units of vocabulary. Grammar is considered secondary. As such, a meaning-centered syllabus should be organized around lexis rather than grammar. The lesson employs the lexical approach, which emphasizes learning language through meaningful chunks and patterns rather than isolated grammatical structures. During the lesson, learners are exposed to contextualized examples that integrate concepts from mathematics and science. These examples enable learners to observe how transition markers, such as those expressing addition, cause and effect, and contrast function in real-world contexts. The assessment focuses not only on recall of rules, but also on functional and communicative language use. Overall, the lesson reflects the principles of the lexical approach by promoting repeated exposure to meaningful language patterns, contextual learning, and purposeful communication. This initial activity requires learners to complete sentences using appropriate transition markers. It activates learners' prior knowledge and introduces them to commonly used lexical chunks such as and because, but, and so. In this part of the lesson, the function of transition markers, addition, cause and effect, contrast, using examples instead of abstract definitions. Vocabulary is explained as discussed NDA, presented in context rather than in isolation. Learners acquire language through repeated exposure to functional word groups, e.g., as a result, in addition, however. This supports lexical chunk acquisition, a core principle of the lexical approach. Students work in groups to create short paragraphs using transition markers to explain situations related to math and science. Collaborative interaction exposes learners to varied lexical choices and encourages negotiation of meaning, key elements of lexical development. Group work enhances communicative competence, critical thinking, and peer-supported learning while reinforcing correct language use. Students write sentences using appropriate transition markers. This encourages active production of language based on understanding, rather than memorization. This activity promotes the use of prefabricated chunks in meaningful output, which is essential for developing fluency and accuracy. Learners gain confidence in expressing ideas independently while applying language patterns correctly in context. The assessment focuses on the correct and meaningful use of transition markers, rather than rote memorization of definitions. Assessment measures learners' ability to apply lexical items in context, aligning with the principle that language knowledge is demonstrated through use. This ensures that learners are evaluated based on functional communication skills, preparing them for real-life academic and communicative tasks. Integration of the lexical approach in this lesson is essential in developing learners' ability to use language meaningfully and accurately in real-life contexts. By focusing on lexical chunks, such as transition markers rather than isolated grammar rules, the lesson allows learners to recognize how language naturally functions in authentic communication. This approach supports deeper comprehension as students encounter vocabulary and context, helping them understand how ideas are logically connected across sentences and disciplines. Through repeated exposure and guided use of meaningful expressions, learners gradually build fluency and confidence in expressing their thoughts clearly and coherently. Overall, the lesson highlights the value of the lexical approach in fostering functional literacy, critical thinking, and effective communication skills essential for lifelong learning.